John Bailey, thank you so much for joining us on Showcase today. So let's start off with the Oscars night, arguably the most important night for the global cinema industry in the world. But the ceremony's ratings have fallen steadily over the last few years. Why do you think this is happening?
The overall decline in the ratings, I think, is partly a reflection of how audiences are diverging. Fewer and fewer young people have televisions. They're watching everything on the internet, on their phones, and so there's a fragmentation. And we see it everywhere. We see it in cable television. We see it in the network television. So that's an inevitable change. We don't know how much it's going to continue to change, but we're very hopeful and excited that last year the ratings went up, increased.
Mm-hmm. And this year, are we going to see a shorter ceremony?
Well, it was shorter by about 35 minutes last year because we didn't have a host, we didn't have extra comedy skits. We tried to make the show even a little shorter. We were going to do cut down versions of several of the awards. That did not find favor among the membership. We would like to do a 3-hour show, but the only way to do a 3-hour show is by shortening some of the awards.
You released a plan to award a new Oscar for popular films, and then you suspended it.
Yes.
Why did that happen? Why did you think it was necessary in the first place?
Well, there are some people that thought it was compromising the integrity, the purity of the Best Picture award. There are other people who were in favor of it, and I was in favor of it, because we felt that while the film that was getting every year for the most recent years Best Picture awards were wonderful films, they were very small films that were seen by a smaller audience. And we wanted to acknowledge the popular, the wide, the expanded audience reality of so many of the big budget superhero movies that are being made today.
A lot of people are saying that the Oscars are getting more and more political each year. Do you agree on that, or do you think it's just not accurate?
I don't see that there's any overt political content to films today compared to, say, like in the 70s, during the Vietnam era and during the youth quake movement. Films were much more overtly political then. It's not a politically active era for American cinema right now. You think there might be plenty of reasons, because there's a polarization in American politics right now. But
how do you think that is reflecting on Oscars at the
I
moment?
don't think it's been reflected in the Oscars at all. So the year before, if you want to say it's politics, it may have been sexual politics that was reflected, but certainly not what we think of in terms of political politics.
I think for the first time ever there is absolute gender parity in the Academy this year.
Well, yes, 50% of the new members are women, 50% are international. We've been working very hard the last 3 years to expand both the racial, ethnic, gender diversity, and it's working very well. There's still, improvements to be made, but no, I think everybody feels we've made great progress.
I'm going to jump
Yes.
to streaming services, which is really important. Okay. And I think a lot of people would like to hear what you think about it. Because after Roma's success, I guess we heard that there was a bit of lobbying, especially coming from Steven Spielberg, about...
You're really up on all this, aren't you?
Well, I did my research. So excluding all the productions from Netflix and other streaming services, I wonder what your stance on it is.
We're in the middle, right in the middle of such strong changes that nobody knows where we are. And to try to jump in and change something that seems to be working is probably not the best pattern. For instance, Netflix, which we've always thought of as a streaming service, has bought a movie theater, and they are exhibiting some of their most prestige films in large screen movie theaters, okay? That's a change for them. The major Hollywood studios, Disney, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Fox, they're all starting their own streaming services. So what we think of as large screen exhibition from the studios are now starting streaming. So it's a mix. You know, it's in flux, it's in change. So the board wisely decided not to make any change this year. And as far as Steven Spielberg or other people are concerned, Steven was misunderstood. He wasn't lobbying for any major change. He just said we should look at this. As happens very often, the media took a story and ran with it, incorrectly.
But I think in an interview with ITV News last year, he said once you commit to a television format, you're a TV movie, therefore you should receive an Emmy, not an Oscar. So you wouldn't agree on that, I guess.
Well, it's really hard to say, because if you are making a movie and your intention is for it to be a streaming or a TV movie, then fine. I think that's what he was saying. But if you're making a movie that you feel is a motion picture and can or should be seen in a dark theater on a large screen, then it should be considered that way, even if it ends up being streamed.
And Roman Polanski and Bill Cosby, they've been expelled from the Academy. And a lawyer representing Roman Polanski said that this is a stupid PR stunt to look politically correct. What do you say to that?
Well, that's Harlan Brown. That's his lawyer. That's what he said. I mean, he's litigating against the Academy. The Academy has released their own statement. I don't really feel it's appropriate to talk about the Polanski matter, because the Academy's in the middle of a lawsuit with Polanski. I will just say this, and all the world can acknowledge it, regardless of how you feel about his expulsion. He has historically been a great filmmaker, has made some very important films. The Academy has given him, an Oscar, after his legal troubles in the States. It's very complex. I think there's no simple solution. And, we'll see what happens.
But the very nature of the Oscars are being discussed more and more in the last few years, I think. How do you see all that?
I don't think that the Oscar brand, they talk about the brand of the Oscar, I don't think it has changed. I don't think it's diminished. I don't think it's greater than it used to be. It's always been, the sine qua non, for awards in motion pictures.
And you don't think it's going through an identity crisis today, as some put forward?
I don't think it's going through an identity crisis. No, I don't think at all. The change that I've seen in recent years regarding the Academy is a willingness to change and to have conversations about change.
And the transformation does not necessarily mean that there is an identity crisis there.
Not at all.
But it is, I think, changing when you look at a lot of the topics that we covered here today.
Yeah, well, everything changes, doesn't it?
And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
John Bailey, president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I really appreciated your questions.
Thank you.